If you haven't grabbed your name tag yet, please make sure you grab it. Make sure you sign in. I'm going to give it just another minute or two because some people are stuck in traffic coming in. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. If you're just waiting to sign in, go ahead and sign in and then head on in. Thanks, everyone, for coming back for day 2. We just opened windows, so hopefully it should cool down a little bit. All right, sign in, please, and come take a seat so we can get started. Ladies outside. Elizabeth. Elizabeth. I did, twice. All right, so. All right, take a seat. You guys don't have assigned seating today, so sit wherever you're comfortable. Hopefully everyone got some good rest between yesterday and today. I sat down at home and did not get back up for a couple hours. When I got home yesterday, I was very tired. All right, so the first part of our training today is a video. It's an hour-and-a-half long video, but we're going to take a break halfway through it at about 45 minutes. And this video is from our president of For the Children. So the president now, her name is Wendy McMahon. I think that's how you pronounce it. And she has become our president over the last, I want to say, 6 months or so. So she's pretty new, but she's very experienced and very knowledgeable about this. She tells a little bit about her background here. But she is going to, they recorded this at the LIFT training, which is like a training that leadership team members go to. They have several throughout the country. And so this one was recorded at one of their sessions, and it's about TBRI. Hopefully that is familiar to all of you by now. Trust-based relational intervention. This is what we do to handle kids at camp, deal with de-escalation, how we keep things from becoming a bigger issue. So she gives a lot of really, really helpful, practical ways to use that at camp with some very normal, real situations for us. So we're going to start this in a second. Like I said, we'll take a break about 45 minutes in. At any time, if you need to get up and use the restroom, get water, get a snack, whatever, go for it. If you need to stand up in the back so you don't fall asleep, do it. Again, this is really important information for you guys to be able to retain. So at the end of her talking about healthy touch is when we'll take that break. So buckle in, get ready, and we'll go ahead and start that.
So today we are talking about using TBRI to create life-changing moments, and we wanted to get really specific with mentoring in camp. in this session. Let's just get a feel for who among us has had some TBRI training. So how many of you, let's start with baseline. How many of you have heard of TBRI? Hands up. Excellent, good. That should be everybody in the room because everybody should be getting some TBRI training as part of your volunteer training. Who feels that they have been trained in some way in TBRI? Good, so that should be most of us as well. Who here has done that training? I'm not gonna make you move up front. Who has done that training for your chapter, either for mentoring or for camp? Okay, good. And then has anyone taken a longer 4 to 24 hour series on TBRI? Hands up for that. Maybe the caregiver package? Okay, good, a good number of you. I would not pretend to be your expert here, but I will tell you my credentials with TBRI. When I was at a CAFO conference in 2009, Christian Alliance for Orphans, my husband went to a breakout, and this was after we had become foster and adoptive parents. He went to a breakout with Dr. Karen Purvis, who is the co-founder of TBRI. And he came out of that breakout and said, you need to go to this woman's next session. She is a magic worker, and this is what we need in our home. I went to her next session, and over the ensuing years after that, my husband and I became big fans of TBRI, as it sounds like many of you in this room are as well. We began to implement TBRI in our home as foster parents. We had 13 children over the course of our 9 years as foster parents. Not all at once, y'all. Usually 2 to 4 at a time. And then I became a TBRI practitioner several years ago so that they signed off and said that I'm allowed to teach you all in some capacity on TBRI. So as we start to begin to talk about TBRI, what I really want to do is give you tips and tricks, things you can take home, things you can take to club next weekend, things you can take to camp this summer, ways that you can begin to use TBRI or maybe some new methods for using TBRI in your own context. And I'm going to share a few assumptions that I have about what you know about TBRI. If some of these things are new to you, you might just want to jot it down and Google it later because there's a whole brain science basis for trust-based relational intervention. And that basis is really what undergirds everything we're talking about today. So if some of the stuff I say doesn't make sense, then you should go and do some of that back research. It's a 4-hour class, and we're not going to take more than about 5 minutes to talk about the science behind that. So I'm assuming that you know that trust-based relational intervention is all about trust. So TBRI is founded on the basis of trust. It's all about helping children learn to trust caregivers. When you are working with a child, you are giving care to them, but really when we talk about caregivers, it's usually parents or the parental figures in kids' lives. And so a big part of what I want to help you with today is how do you help a child progress using TBRI in the time they have with you in a way that's going to set them up for success when they go back to their caregiver, whether that becomes reunifying with a biological parent who may or may not have any trauma-informed care experience, or if it means going back to a foster parent or an adoptive parent. Trust is built on the foundation of attachment. Excuse me. Attachment is the connection between a child and his or her caregiver in the early months and years of life. Attachment is a psychological theory, and you can take a whole semester class on attachment if you decide to become a psychologist or a social worker. And attachment is the concept that the bond that a parent and child develop in the early months and the early years of life forms the basis of every other relationship that you will ever have. So, when my parents held me and kept me dry and kept me fed and make sure I was warm, those thousands, Dr. Purvis says, the thousands, hundreds of thousands of times that we do that with an infant and a young child are building attachment with that child. When children do not have that opportunity to have that stable connection or when it's not consistent. So sometimes when I cry, I'm cared for. Sometimes when I cry, I lie there in my crib because nobody comes to me. Somebody's left me alone. When that happens, there's a break in attachment, and that becomes something that leads to some of the behaviors that we see among our kids. Disruptions in attachment can lead to trauma-based behaviors. So if that attachment is broken, and sometimes that can be just removal from the care of the biological parents. It can also be because there was abuse that occurred, or it can be because there's neglect. Whenever that disruption happens, it can lead to behaviors in a child. These are behaviors that they've adapted to have, right? So there's a need behind every behavior. If Jeff got up right now and left the room, that's a behavior, right? What need could Jeff be expressing with that? Restroom. He might need the restroom. What else? He doesn't believe what I'm saying. He needs to not be listening to Wendy McMahon right now. That's fine. I'll accept that, Jeff. Or maybe he needs to learn about fundraising, and he just realized that's in the other room and that's not right here. So everything that we do expresses a need, right? And when a child expresses a need, sometimes it doesn't look like a behavior that we would normally want for that need. So if I said to kids, raise your hand if you know the answer to the question, you would think that they would raise their hand, right? But some kids have adapted to not raise their hands because of the environment that they've been in. You'll also see this is the reason that you might have a runner. You might have a child who wets the bed. You might have a child who simply doesn't trust you or is highly cautious or highly volatile, who might hit other kids. And so every behavior is expressing a need. And in TBRI, we teach that we are the ones who are supposed to see the need, meet the need, and never, ever give up. So we see the need. We go, we study the child. What is the need that this child is expressing with this behavior? And that is a behavior that has worked for them in the past. And we better not be giving a child, be taking a behavior away from a child without offering them a different way to get that need met, right? So we can't say, you've got to stop hitting. You've got to stop running. You've got to stop scratching me or biting me. We can't tell them to stop a behavior unless we're offering them a better behavior, a behavior that is going to get their needs met and is going to truly serve them. All right. And then we never quit, right? We keep it on with the kids. We keep working with that child. It's our job to figure them out. Now, for me, and I just want to get this out of the way before I get to all the tips and tricks for you. By the way, I have 81. Is that good? 81. I was shooting for 100, so I need 19 from all of y'all. Before we get to the tips and tricks, many people, my parents, will say, that sounds like permissive parenting. That child's just going to steamroll you when you start talking about all the interventions that are part of TBRI. Has anybody heard that? Heard that about this type of intervention? So is TBRI permissive parenting? Is it just being a pushover for children? Or is it permissive caregiving when we're taking care of kids in other contexts? And this is what I want to drive home for all of us. In TBRI, we talk about structure and we talk about nurture. Okay, structure is the routine that we give kids, right? Structure is when we say, this is the schedule, this is the expectations on you, the behavioral expectations, this is the rules that we have. Nurture is when we give care and connection to a child. Structure and nurture. I don't know about any of you. I have fantastic parents, so this is nothing against my parents. They're fabulous. Every parent has weaknesses. I'm sure my teenagers would be glad to tell you about mine. But there was a time, I'll tell you a story about my mom. My mom had 5 kids, and she took us all to Fedco one day, and it was in January. And what comes out in January? The Valentines. And I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and all I wanted was to pick Valentines for my friends. And my mom was not ready to buy Valentines for 5 kids yet. And so I begged her, and I didn't realize I was begging her. I didn't realize I was bothering her, but I begged her, and I followed her around the store talking about Valentines. And when we left the store, she spoke to me in such a way that she was frustrated. I'm sure I've talked to my kids this way as well. But she told me what I was supposed to be doing or what I had done wrong, right? She demonstrated the structure. But I remember clearly that she pulled away from the nurture with me. That I wasn't precious to her in that moment. That she wasn't able to both nurture me and provide that structure for me in that moment. And you can see, I mean, it's just a dumb story, right? It's a dumb story about Valentine's, but it still gets me a little bit emotional thinking about it. I think there is a type of parenting. Maybe you were parented this way, and maybe you have parented this way, as I have as well, where our tendency is to pull away from connecting with a child when we have to provide any kind of a consequence or behavior management. And that is not the way of trust-based relational intervention. So sometimes we talk about this on a grid. I'm just going to give you the 4. We're going to talk about high structure versus high nurture. So if you have high structure and low nurture, right? You're always telling them what it is, but you're not nurturing that child's heart. That's authoritarian caregiving. And authoritarian means, you're the boss and it's your way. Low structure, so the opposite, somebody who provides very low structure and high nurture, that's permissive, right? When we're connecting with the child and helping them to see themselves as precious, but we're not giving them the structure that they need, that is permissive, and that is not what TBRI is. Now, of course, if you didn't provide any structure and you didn't provide any nurture, that's neglectful. And a lot of our kids have experienced that as well. But finally, this 4th category is the sweet spot where we want to land, and that's where we provide high structure and high nurture. We do not change the fact that we have expectations of kids. We as the adults in the room, we're the boss, and we're choosing to share power and help a child negotiate their needs. And we're always doing it in a way that doesn't withhold the preciousness of the child, that always communicates you are the most precious thing. It doesn't, your behavior doesn't determine the fact that you're made in the image of God, right? Okay, so my 81 tips and tricks, some of them we'll spend more time on, some of them will go more quickly. I wouldn't advise that you write all of these down. Very few of these are ones that I've come up with myself. You can probably Google any of them. And so what I would just suggest is if something really catches your fancy, you think it would work for you, maybe just jot down a few words to remind you later, and I'm always happy to have another conversation. I want you to get the feel for what it is that we're doing here. Also, there's a resource for you on Unleash, and it's our TBRI manual. So this is the For the Children Trust-Based Relational Intervention Manual that's available to all of you directors, and this holds a lot of the items I'm going to be talking about today. So I just wanted to mention that as a resource. Okay, went backwards. When we talk about TBRI, there's 3 categories of principles, and some of these will overlap in different places, but for those who need to know kind of the structure of what we're talking about today, you'll see me talking about connecting principles, empowering principles, and correcting principles. Now, if you come to talk about kids that have some of these adaptive behaviors, maladaptive behaviors you might call them, if you're coming to hear about what to do about the kid that bites and kicks and hits and runs away, which of these sets of principles do you think would be the one that you're looking to hear about today? Oh, I love that you're saying all of them. What would an average person without your training say? Correcting, good, thank you. You all are already a step ahead. I love it. What a great group. So you're probably coming to think about correcting principles. When I worked for a foster care agency and got to teach about TBRI, we would do this in a whole weekend, and families would come and they're getting ready to be foster parents. Any foster parents or former foster parents in the room? Yes, great. And you remember when you went to foster parent training, if you hadn't already had experience with our kids, that you would come thinking, okay, I've heard how hard these kids are, and what should I do? Like, how many minutes should a timeout be, right? And what do I need to do if I get a biter or any of that? And then we would spend, no joke, so this is all day Saturday and then Sunday afternoon. We would spend all day Saturday on connection. We'd spend the first 2 hours of Sunday on empowering. And by then they're like, all right, okay, but what do I do about the behaviors? And when you finally get to correcting, you realize it's actually a very small part of this intervention. And that's because you've done so much work to prevent the negative behaviors. I wouldn't think too hard today about, does this really fit in correcting or connecting? Because when you are using this intervention at camp, I don't think you're going to have the child who says, you know what? I feel like you're trying to empower me right now, but this feels more like connecting. I don't think you're going to have that kid. One of you's like, I have that kid. I know I have that kid. They're gonna know the whole thing. But we are going to format what we talk about basically in that order, and we'll start with, I keep going backwards. Sorry, guys. We'll start with connecting principles. The goal of connecting is to build trust and disarm fear. And when we talk about connecting principles, the first set of strategies we talk about is engagement strategies. And that's engaging with the child. So engagement strategies provide ways to nurture a healthy connection with a child at any age. Why don't we start with when we first meet the child? So I'm missing your name tags. What's your name? Meredith, come on up. Grab these, and Meredith is going to be, I can't take this chair. I'm going to take Meredith's chair. I'm just going to move you, Meredith. Meredith is going to be the child who just got off the bus for camp, and you go ahead and sit. I'm only having her sit because that's how tall she is, okay? You're my 7-year-old. You're my 7-year-old camper. So when Meredith first gets to camp, the first thing that I want to do is position myself slightly below her line of sight. Why do I want to do that? Who knows? Somebody had their hand up. Right. Now, Meredith, how does it feel if I'm talking to you like this? It feels a little demeaning, right? And kids are used to adults talking to them from standing up here, and it's just the height that we are. You know, if I'm seeing you at church, this is probably the height I'm at. If I come down right below your eye level, how does that feel? Like we're friends, yeah. And something about being below somebody's line of sight is disarming, right? We're trying to be disarming here. So I'm going to come below her line of sight, and I'm going to offer eye contact. Different from demanding eye contact. If you're demanding eye contact, then it's look at me right here. That's not what I'm going to do when I first meet her. I'm going to offer her eye contact. And I'm going to use her name as much as I can. Meredith, I'm so glad to meet you. Did you see the sign that I made for you? Did I get your name right? Did I spell it right? Oh my goodness, Meredith is such a good name. I've been thinking about you, and I made this sign for you, Meredith. We're going to have such a good time at camp. Oh, what a sweet girl. Okay, so you really are a sweet girl. Good, it worked. Look at that, folks. So I'm going to keep you up just for another minute, Meredith. So I'm also going to be paying attention to Meredith's cues. When Meredith gets off the bus, what's the volume level like? Crazy, right? Like if there's one thing that's the same about every camp is that there's a rah-rah moment when they come off that bus. And so when Meredith gets off that bus, she might be completely overwhelmed. And that might look like shutting down. It might look like looking around. So I might grab her hand, and we're staying too deep, but I might come over and bring her somewhere just a little bit off to have that conversation. Now, she might be looking around for her luggage, right? Do you have those kids? That their stuff is somewhere. They were removed from their stuff on that bus. And all of our kids have had that experience where that stuff was taken from them and they never saw that stuff again. And, somebody might have thought that stuff was trash because it looked like trash, but it was their stuff. So if she's looking around for her stuff, we might I know at my camp we had, all the guys put the luggage onto the golf carts and they would take it up to the cabin. For Meredith, I might say, you know what, we're gonna wait till your stuff gets off the bus. You tell me when you see it, and then why don't we walk behind the cart and we'll go up to the cabin together? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Now, if Meredith says, no, I want to go see the cabin now. Okay, that's great, that's fine, right? I'm gonna work with Meredith, but I'm gonna respond to her cues. Using her name a lot, I mentioned. And then through the week, if I'm her counselor, if I'm seeing her every day, there's some ways that I can build trust with her. So let's talk about seeking eye contact. When we are seeking eye contact with a child, the first thing I want to communicate about eye contact is that we are never, ever, ever going to require or expect eye contact from a child unless we can convey to them with our eyes that they are precious. I bet you as a child had an adult say to you, look at me when I'm talking to you. And Kyle, was that positive or not? It was not, right? It was frequent, yeah. And then that gaze that you got back from that person was probably not saying, Kyle, you are just the most precious boy. It was probably saying, Kyle, I can't believe what you did, right? Mostly it was justified. All right. We're going to get to the mindfulness and processing our own history later. So, yeah. So when we offer eye contact, one of the things that Dr. Purvis has said is you never, ever want to look a child in the eyes unless it can be warm eye contact that says you are precious. Even when we're providing that high structure, we're providing that high nurture. So when I'm looking at Meredith in the eyes, anytime I'm looking at her in the eyes, it's going to be warm eye contact. And that's not just my eyes, right? That's my face that conveys that to her. Okay, you get a kid who doesn't want to make eye contact. Have you had that kid? They will not make eye contact. There are gifts that you can give that child's caregiver at the end of the week or after mentoring that will benefit that child and that child's family in the future. And this is one of those. For me, I got to know Royal Family Kids Camp through being a parent and sending my kids off to camp. And that was like the most wonderful week of my life. So thank you all very much. That is like the best week because not only are my kids taken care of, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get that call in the middle of the week saying my kid has to come home, right? And with church camp, that actually happened for us, sadly. There's reasons you need to send kids home, and if you just felt any bit of guilt for any of that, that's not from the Lord, because that sometimes has to happen. But then when my kids would come back after that week, they had been poured into, right? They hadn't been the behavioral target at camp. They hadn't been the identified child in need of help at camp. They had had the experience of being nurtured so well that when they came home, it wasn't like making up work for me. So there's gifts that you can give a caregiver, and if you have a child who avoids eye contact, teaching them that adults can be safe for eye contact can be a really good thing. And so, Meredith, would you, I'm going to send you back to your seat in just a minute, not yet. I've still got you here. But would you be an eye contact avoider for me for a moment? So she doesn't want to look at me, and I'm just offering eye contact. I'm not telling her that I expect it, but I might say, Meredith, would you look at my eyes? Now, I'm using a gentle voice with her, right? Because I don't know what kind of eye contact experience Meredith has had. There's a reason she doesn't want to look at my eyes, but she just keeps looking away, right? She can't look, and she won't. And so I might even play with her a little bit and go, there you are. What beautiful brown eyes are those brown or hazel, Meredith? You have beautiful brown eyes. Oh my goodness. You get told that a lot, don't you? There you go. So, we're working on finding that eye contact, and then it could even be a game with us for the rest of the week. It's not something I'm going to force, but it's something I'm going to offer, and I'm going to try to help her with that goal. Okay, thanks, Meredith. You can sit down. Yeah, Meredith. Okay, so think about those kinds of gifts that you can give the caregiver that later they're gonna go, what happened to my kid that they're looking at me in the eyes now, and I've never been able to achieve that before. Other things you can try for eye contact, and I'm going to ask for some ideas here. You know the hand slap game where, like, Serena, if you take your hands here and then you go like this, right? And I'm trying to slap her hands. And so I usually play that game like looking at the hands, but you could play it with eye contact. Like, you can't look down from my eyes. So now they're practicing eye contact, right? But it's a game. And it's not in a way that is expecting anything of me other than this hand thing. What are some other ways that you can get eye contact from kids? Oh, a staring contest, that's good. I lose it every time right away, but that's fine. That's the point, right? Was there another one over here? Yeah. Talk about eye color, yeah. Yeah, so what color are your eyes? And then it gets you thinking about your eyes and wanting to show off your eyes. Look at my eyes. You can tell them a story. And then that would cause them to look at your eyes without you expecting something of them. Because me talking to you while looking at you is different from me looking at you and listening to you. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to pay attention to our eye contact. We also want to pay attention to our voice quality throughout the week. And when we talk about voice quality, there's 3 aspects to the quality of your voice. The first one is your tone. You want to have a tone. Now, this is difficult for some of us, especially women. You know that woman, you might be her, who just naturally has a high-pitched voice. And that's something that you might want to think about and even work on. But more with tone, I'm talking about like baby talk. If you're talking baby talk, does that convey that I'm a safe grown-up who's going to keep structure for you? No. So I'm not going to talk baby talk with you, even if you're only 6 and you're so cute, right? I'm going to talk with a tone that displays that I'm authoritative, but you might, some of you men especially, you might have a tone that, I don't know, could feel kind of serious and scary. And so you might need to work on that on the other side. The second aspect is your volume. I have a sister who's a loud talker. She's just loud. You know, if Meredith and she were here, Meredith would be like, okay. Chrissy just talks loud. You can hear her through walls. And so Chrissy has to work on the volume of her voice. You also don't want a voice that's too quiet, at least not most of the time, right? You want a volume that is thoughtful. And then the third part is cadence. Most of the time, our cadence, the speed at which we're talking, and also the melodiousness, it should be melodious. We should have a cadence with kids that is almost sing-songy, you know, not weird sing-songy, but lighthearted. Use your lighthearted voice with kids. And then we've got behavior matching. Behavior matching is magical. It is wonderful. It is a trick that you can use with adults as well. So if I'm in a conversation with Alicia, come on up. If I'm in a conversation with Alicia, and Alicia, tell me where you're from. Texas. You're from Texas? Oh my gosh. Okay, what I just did in touching my hair like Alicia, did you feel the magical connection between us?
Is that what you're calling it?
It's extremely subtle, but children and adults respond to behavior matching. Have you heard this with adults? Like cross your legs like them or lean forward like them. It's a thing because it truly works. And so I'm going to behavior match with Alicia as much as I can. If she's got her hands in her pockets, I'm going to do that, you know? If you're kind of standing at the side from me, I might kind of stand at the side from you. If I'm trying to draw you in a little bit, I might just come a little bit here, right? All right, good. She's so glad she came up to the front and volunteered. Okay, also, if Alicia and I are going to the craft station, what do you call your craft station? Activity center. If you're going to the activity center, does your camp allow the adults to do activities as well? Like to paint a jewelry box or whatever? You expect it, right on. Okay, so Alicia, what activity are you going to choose at the activity center? I love the bracelet table. Let's go do it. Okay, so we're at the bracelet table. I'm going to make one too. What kind of beads are you going to use?
I want to use the rubber bands.
Oh, the rubber bands? Let's totally use the rubber bands. What colors should we do?
Black and white.
Black and white, so good. So good. It's going to match what you're wearing. It'll match what I'm wearing perfectly. We're going to do black and white. Oh my gosh, we're going to have matching ones. That's going to be great. Okay, and now my goal, so some of you, men especially, have this tendency to like want to make yours better, just a little better, right? You're acknowledging this, Rob. You just kind of want to one up a little bit, right? There's no place for that here, right? It should be just as good or better than mine, right? And we're all going to know you're doing that, and that's how you win, right? You win because we go, good job, it's not as good as his. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Alicia. You can sit down. Good job. So we're going to try to select the same things. And, you know, this is not your time to tell the child how much you dislike hot dogs. This is your time to put the hot dog on your plate and to put the same condiments as they use. You know, don't go crazy. Like if you're allergic to mustard, you don't have to eat the mustard, please. But as much as possible, this is going to validate the child's choices. This is going to validate who the child is by saying, the choices you're making, they're just so good. I'm going to do those same things. That's great. Going on a bear hunt. Have you done that with your kids? So when you go on a bear hunt, you know, going on a bear hunt, right? And then we're going to like go through the grass or whatever, and we're all doing the same thing. So that's behavior matching, another example of that. Other examples of behavior matching that y'all would share? Yes. Yeah, sure, Sheree, yeah. Good. Oh, right. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Okay, I'm going to ask you the answer to the question before I give mine, because I think you probably have the answer. But let me repeat this for our online friends. So the question is behavior matching when the behavior is not the one that you want. So a child who's all over the place during worship when you want them to stay right here, or what was another example? The campfire, like we're expecting them that they're here. What if they're, putting the s'mores rod in people's faces? Is that the behavior matching you should do? My example. So how do you respond to that, Cherie? There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah. Okay, so Cherie's answer is you meet the expectation of what the behavioral expectation is. So if standing during worship is expected, then you're standing up. But if they're not super enthusiastic and dancing around, then you don't have to be super enthusiastic and dancing around. Anyone have a different or modified answer from that of what you would say? Yeah, over here, Austin. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Austin was saying that we want to connect to redirect. So you're going to have a connection place, but then redirecting the behavior. Yeah. Yeah. Good. That was a test. Yeah. So there's behaviors to accept and then there's behaviors to match is what was explained. And that, of course, the funny thing there was the stabbing with the s'more stick. And I told her she passed the test of saying she would not match that behavior. So I think that as uncomfortable as it is, there's a lot of gray in here. And I would definitely say you don't want to match any behavior that is undesirable. But if there's part of TBRI that is not in my notes is setting the bar. And so for our kids, the bar that you might think for an 8-year-old would be that you are sitting still during the story and you're standing during worship and you're obeying what I told you to do. The bar might need to be lowered for our kids, but there's still a bar. That's still the structure that we set. And so if you have a kid that can't sit still for this or that, then there's going to be some modifications for them. Is that helpful, Cherie? I didn't give you anything really, but the group did here. Okay, great. Another connecting technique is and this is probably the most simple thing to do, is just repeating back what you hear from a kid. That's a form of behavior matching, and it is just repeating the thing that they said. So if Bella says, at school last year, I don't have one. If at school last year, I learned how to build a house out of cards, then I might say, oh my goodness, you learned how to build a house out of cards. So it's not just, oh my goodness, it's just repeating the very words that she said. I understand there's some words you're not going to repeat from kids. I get that. But just telling a child back what they just told you, it's a way of matching, it's a way of validating, it's a way of you hearing them. One thing that you have probably seen, especially I see it a lot from younger, like college age or young adult volunteers, is sarcasm. Sarcasm is super common, right? And it's a very common way of connecting with kids. And you know what? Kids love sarcasm, right? They love it. And they love it because it's a way for them to get out that negative stuff without being held accountable for it. And it's not the healthiest way for us to connect with our kids. So my advice would be to avoid sarcasm and to gently redirect those adults who might find that way handy or helpful of connecting with the child. While it's a connection, it's not usually a healthy one for our kids. Any questions or thoughts about sarcasm? Yeah, Adam. Adam said no. Okay, good. Thanks for the example, Adam. Okay. I'm going to get to pull Adam up. Yeah. A complaint station, yeah. You can suggestion box.
I was nominated the king and queen.
Oh dear, yeah. There might be a place for teaching kids what's healthy and not healthy, but our kids, I know, as a personal story, my daughters really, they're adults, young adults now, they really benefited from mentorship, but there were some mentors, youth leaders at church they really connected with who were very sarcastic with them, and I could see that it wasn't healthy for them. Yeah. You call them bad dad jokes, they call them sarcasm. Okay. Kyle, and then back there. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That the younger kids have a more difficult time understanding sarcasm. And you might have kids who will play it off, but they really do believe that you're trying to say something hurtful. Okay, we're going to go over here and then over here. Yeah. They hear the words more than the tone. And then later they might say, well, he told me this. And in fact, you did. You did tell her that, right? Okay, back here. So that sarcasm by nature is duplicitous, and your face says one thing, and your mouth might say a different thing. Thank you. Back here, Jim. Right. Yeah. So Jim makes the dual points of that our kids are not necessarily matching with their chronological age, and then if they have some autism spectrum or other, special developmental needs, then they might not be right on track there. There's some truth in all sarcasm. Yeah. 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 So Jim pointed out that comedians often use sarcasm, but they are expressing their own hurt. Linda. Uh-huh. Right. Right. So a child that you just met doesn't know how to read you yet, and they might not be used to the way that you joke, and they might not be able to track with you there. Wow, I didn't expect all the conversation on sarcasm. Rob, yes. And then we'll go over here.
Well, especially with our volunteers, many times we don't know each other very well.
Yeah.
By the time we get to camp, there can be misinterpretation of the way we speak.
Yeah, so be aware of the way you even speak among volunteers, and we don't know what kind of talk is triggering for the kids as far as things that they've heard. Our kids very probably, for many of them, have heard in domestic violence type of situations that they've experienced, or even abuse situations, sarcasm that escalated to actual hurt. Yes, over here. Good. Good. So sarcasm is best used when there's already trust built and we haven't yet built that with our kids, and can't expect probably that by the end of our program term we will have done that. Or even if we have that with a particular child, there's others listening, right? Okay, over here. It can be a subtle put down. Yeah. So, yeah. Uh-huh. So it can definitely be a put down, and you probably don't have the rapport within the time that you have. I'm going to take one more from Lauren, and then we're going to move on because I'm only at like 20 out of 81. Okay.
Sure. I think too, like sarcasm can take away the vulnerability piece or like hide the vulnerability to a
Yeah.
certain degree, and it can create authentic connections and like that connecting principle, like getting rid of that vulnerability that creates an authentic connection, which is exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay, so Lauren I'm so glad we finished this with this comment that sarcasm can be an armor against your vulnerability. And if we can help a child bring that down, then that can be a real connection point. I'm rewording what you said, but it is that idea that, again, this can be a gift you give to a child of letting them actually say the things that they think, even if it's things that are hard that you're going to help them work through. Okay, great conversation. Wow. So next year at Lift, we're going to do a session on sarcasm. That's what I just learned. Okay. Oh, great. Yeah. Kyle hates me. Okay. Okay, more ways that you can connect with kids. This is just a silly one. I am like the queen of jingles. So my kids would, growing up, they would say, "Mom, sing me a song about a tree," and I'd have to make up a tree song in the moment. Anybody like that? Like you just love the jingles and the rhymes. So a song I love to do that just came to me one day goes, "Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my bones. Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my bones. Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my bones." Oh, this is gonna go low. "If you got this feeling, then you're not alone." It's too low. And then I would say, "Okay, you give me one." "Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my," okay? And then you might say, what's a body part? Nose, okay? Now I've got 3 lines to think of a rhyme for nose. So I go, "Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my nose. Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my nose." I'm thinking, "Oh yeah, I got a feeling in my nose. I'm gonna use it to smell a rose." Something like that, right? And then we just go back and forth and they throw things out. Okay, so just a fun way to connect with kids. And then some kid says, "But," right? Okay, that's going to give you a great redirection opportunity, and we're going to keep it playful, right? We're going to go, "Oh, I can't do that one," and it might be, I can't do parts that are covered up by our clothes, or I can't do ones that we're not allowed to talk about, or whatever, right? But it's playful. "Oh, I can't do that one, so give me another one," and then somebody will give you another one. Maybe they give you like, a word you really, really can't repeat here, and eventually you might have to say, "You know what? We're going to play a different game," just a total redirect, right? Or when you're playing that game, you might have nose, and you're like, by line 1, you've got it, right? You've got like the best rhyme, and you get to the 3rd line, and then the kid's like, "I've got it. I think we should eat some pizza." Okay, that was like, you're like, "I've got a way better one than that." I'm not going to correct the kid. I'm like, "Oh, that's so good. I love it. I think we should get some pizza," because this is not jingle school, right? This is our opportunity to connect with kids. So find those things that you love to do. Use them to connect with the kids. We also want to talk about healthy touch. So I love side hugs. I love that we do side hugs. Side hugs are great. Other ways for healthy touch, I'm going to ask you for some feedback on this. I got to be in a cabin with the older girls. They just love to do hair. So they did my hair. I did their hair. By the end of the week, that was some greasy hair. But it was the opportunity to have healthy touch with these girls, right? Doing makeup was that for us as well. Doing nails. Hopefully you've got nail stuff at your activity center. Mine had a shave station, like, the pretend shavers. You guys do that? The pretend razors, and we would shave our arms, and that was the only clean smell the kids had all week. You could have a secret handshake. Have you seen those YouTube videos where a teacher will have like a different handshake with every kid? So you've got your handshake with that particular kid. For the boys, for boys and girls, sometimes it's harder to find ways to have healthy touch with boys because, they're usually not doing the makeup or the hair grooming. But basketball is more of a contact sport. There's some more contact sports out there where, it's not snuggle time. It's just opportunities to have that physical connection that's really good for kids. What are some other ways that you promote healthy touch in your programs? Yeah, Jeff. Thumb wrestling, that's good. Let's show off thumb wrestling. Want to come up? Do you do 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. So I'm focused on getting his thumb down. He's good. I'm focused on getting his thumb down, but look at all this healthy touch, right? You have a nice warm hand, Jeff. Oh, and then you do it with eye contact, and that's good. I like how you brought in the eye contact. That's great. Other healthy touch? Oh, that's great. Hand claps, good. Yeah. Any others? Rock, paper, scissors, good. Yeah, okay. What else? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. It's something. Yeah. That's something. That's a gift you're passing on, too, for him and for the people in his life. It's great. Oh, I didn't repeat it. There was a kid that wouldn't have any kind of physical touch, but by the end of the week, he was willing to do elbows with the adults. Here, and then we'll go back there. Oh, that's good. How tall are you? Are you tall? Let's see how tall you are. Okay, there. Okay, see, where would you... That's good. That's so good. I love that. They love to jump to try to slap your hand, and if you're taller, that can be a real challenge for them. In the back? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we're curious for a read on the room about hand-holding because hand-holding can mean a lot of different things. There can be grooming, the negative kind of grooming involved with holding hands with the child. So let's do maybe 3 or 4 people on do you have policies or thoughts about hand-holding? Kim? Okay. Okay, so hand-holding should be initiated by the child. Carol?
We always just ask,
So we ask first, is it okay if we hold your hand? Good. Others? Follow-up question, okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just to encapsulate this, and then I'm going to take 2 comments, and then we'll move on. The fact that some kids might initiate this, but it's a learned behavior from someone who has sexually abused or groomed or sexualized them. So that's something that we wrestle with. Who did I just say we were going to go to? There and then there. Mhm. Great. So good, Christy. I wish you had the microphone. That this is an opportunity to reteach safe touch and what is appropriate and how far is appropriate with hand holding. And then if you as an adult are just feeling the weird vibe there or something's not right, it's okay for you to demonstrate your own boundaries there, right? And say, you know what, I'm done holding hands. I'm going to hold my own hand, or I'm not going to hold hands for a while. And that's fine too. And that's good and healthy. Here. Yeah, yeah. So the solution to unhealthy touch is not no touch. It's healthy touch. And I think that's really important that we want to be reteaching that for our kids, because the reality is there's going to be other adults they want to hold hands with, and we show them what is appropriate boundaries. Was there one like have to share in the back? Are you sure? Uh-huh. Okay. So the aspect of like, can you hold this for me? So different ways that we can redirect. Okay, let's talk about preventing.
We'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break now. So you have until 2:40 to go get a snack, water, move your body so you're awake again. And then we'll see you at 2:40 back in your seats, please. If you came in late, this video is an hour and a half total, but we stopped halfway for a break. So we'll do the other half. Gentlemen, thank you. So I know it's a little bit awkward because we can't hear what people in the audience are saying, and so there's like periods of silence where she's just going, yeah. But I want you, though, to notice how she is listening to people, and she's a really, really good example of what it is to be engaged and hear people, not just listen to them. So she's giving a lot of really good but subtle body and verbal feedback with her, great, oh yeah, that's awesome. She's not like too much because it doesn't feel genuine if you're like way too big about it, but she does a really good job of eye contact, paying attention to the person that's talking, and giving some feedback that she's like still with them. So just something to notice. All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue. After this is over, we'll do some music, so we'll move your bodies. We'll do our camp song, and then we'll take another break after that. So, you're doing great. Move around if you need to without distracting others, and away we go.
Can redirect. Okay, let's talk about preventing undesirable behaviors. And we want to do that with playful engagement. Playful engagement should be the baseline of all of our behavior management, that we're going to keep it playful. And that disarms fear. I have here in my notes, connect before redirect, Austin. So we're going to do that with a warm tone, with moderate volume, and a quick, playful speed. So you heard me do that when the imaginary kid suggested the word but, right? Oh, no, we're not gonna do that. We're just moving right on. Quick, playful, moderate, warm. Everything's friendly. You can use a silly voice of surprise when discovering an undesirable behavior. So something that you didn't want to happen, whatever it is, you can think of all those examples. You can go, I don't think we're gonna do that. Okay, we're moving over here. You can use a silly accent. I will not expose you to any of my silly accents right now. You can sing and dance while cleaning up. You can make transitions fun. So, hey, you guys, it's time to go to lunch. For some reason, you've got a kid in your group that doesn't want to ever go to anything new. We're gonna dance to lunch today because that kid loves to dance. Or we're going to be superheroes flying to the story corner today. A great TBRI trick is, are you asking or are you telling? So are you asking me or are you telling me? Hey, you go get me my beach towel. Oh, Carol, are you asking me or are you telling me? And then she might go, I'm asking. Oh, great. Now this is a chance for a redo, another big part of TBRI. I want to give her the muscle memory, the verbal memory of doing it the way I want her to. Try it again. Ask me like a question. And then Carol might say, oh my goodness, Carol, I love that. Please, of course I'll get you your beach towel. And Carol might say, I'm telling you. And then I'm still going to try to keep it playful. I'm going to go, you know what? I would actually love to go get it for you if you would ask me. I just told her what I'm going to do. I told her I'm going to do the thing that she wants, right? So she knows exactly what's going to happen if she just asks me, that she's going to get the outcome she wants. We're teaching her the way to get her needs met in a healthier way, a more socially acceptable way too, right? Turn it into a game. So let's say prayer time. You always have kids, fidgeting around, standing up. Before you go into the chapel time, you're going to talk to your kids and say, you guys, I noticed, okay, when we're in prayer time, this is a great time for us to play a game. So when we pray, I want to see, we're going to look down at our feet. We're not going to close our eyes. We're going to look down at our feet. And we're going to try to keep our feet in the exact same place the whole time we're praying. And after we're done, don't say anything during the prayer, right? After we're done praying, we're going to look at each other and go like, yeah, if we did it right, or we're going to point to each other if we didn't. Okay, so that's like a playful way for us to get the behavior that we want to have. And then drawing out positive qualities in kids. At camp last summer, there was a kid named Isaac, and Isaac was the wall bouncer. He was always everywhere. He was very volatile. And I went on a hike with Isaac and a bunch of other kids. And Isaac's poor counselor, is like, this is Friday morning. Isaac's poor counselor the whole week had just been trying to manage Isaac, and he was probably pretty much done. And it was, Isaac, you can't go up there. Isaac, that's not safe. Isaac, he's just trying to get the kid home alive, right? Without a broken bone. And I'm walking down, so I'm 46, so I get to play the older lady card, right? And I'm right behind Isaac, and I go, I just tried this, and it totally worked. I said, oh, Isaac, where did you just step? Because I don't know where to go. It wasn't that hard. It's a hill, like going down, right? Where did you go? Isaac stopped, and he turned around, and he said, I went right there. And I said, okay, you got to help me, Isaac. And I put my hand out, and that kid walked me down that entire hill. Good hand holding, right? That's a good hand holding. That kid walked me down the entire hill. We got down, and he was off again, whatever. But we were able to keep Isaac safe by drawing out a positive quality in that kid. And then redos for small things, like we've already talked about. So if Carol didn't raise her hand, sorry, Carol, you're a good kid. I'm sorry for picking on you. But if Carol didn't raise her hand, and this is part of story time when I really wanted kids to raise their hand to give me an example, and I said, I'm going to call on the kids who raise their hands. And then Carol says, Potiphar, when we were talking about Joseph, right? And I say, Carol, did you want to raise your hand and tell me the answer? Oh, Carol, right? So instead of just not paying attention to Carol, like I'm giving her that opportunity to have that redo. Okay, that was connecting. That's the biggest part of what we're talking about. And we're going to move on to empowering. Empowering principles facilitate change in children by teaching them self-regulation skills. Learning self-regulation starts externally and it goes to co-regulation and then self-regulation. That's really important for kids because when you care for an infant, you are first externally regulating them, right? You're putting the blanket on them. You are putting the bottle in their mouth, or that you're providing their needs by you doing the thing. And then as they get older, you're teaching them, right? Like I remember when my daughter was a year and a half, and I would hold her and I would tap her on the back to settle her down. And I remember the day when she started tapping me on the back when she was crying. Like she was learning that because we were doing it together, right? So that co-regulation starts happening. And then at a certain age, they regulate themselves. And that's the way development is supposed to happen. It hasn't happened for a lot of our kids. And so you're probably not going to move anything from external to self-regulation in a week or in 9 mentoring sessions, but you are going to help them along the way. So that's how we want to think about our empowering principles. Felt safety is the idea of feeling like I'm safe, not just being safe. You know that the child's safe, but they don't know that it's safe to sleep in that cabin. They don't know that nobody's going to come hurt them. They don't know that they're going to sleep in that bed every night this week. And so you have to be the one to help them actually feel safe. One way we do that is we share the schedule with them and we keep reminding, right? In the morning, we say, these are the things that we're going to do. We're going to go do breakfast, and we're going to do breakfast club, and we're going to go swimming, and then we're going to have lunch. We tell them all the stuff. And then throughout the day, we talk about it. And I will usually say, and tonight we're going to sleep right here, and you're going to sleep in that same bed. I would even do that with a 12-year-old. I would say all the things that are most obvious to us. I would say things like, we're always going to have enough food here. There's always going to be enough food for you. The whole time you're at camp, we're going to have enough. I'm going to be in your cabin the whole week. Every night here, you get to sleep in this same bed. This is your bed. And keep reiterating those things. Be a student of the child, just like we did with Meredith up here, when we were talking about the luggage or what's going on with her. Do I need to get off to a separate space? Be a student of the child and really learn what it is that they need to feel safe. You can even ask, what would make you feel safe right now? Would it be better if we did this? Because when you say what would make you feel safe right now, they might know, or they might have absolutely no idea. And so you might be able to suggest some things like, what, it seems like you might feel better if we sat over in this corner, or we sat somewhere where you could see the door and who's coming in and out of chapel, something like that. Another principle of felt safety is whenever possible, nobody gets out in a game, right? We don't play games that you get out and then you have to sit out and watch everybody else have fun. So we rotate you back in if if you're playing Zaza ball or one of those kinds of things. We're trying to make sure that there's never any out in the games that we play. Side conversations about issues they have. So you saw in the paperwork that you have a bedwetter. This child is prone to bedwetting. I'm probably going to be pulling that child aside, and I'm going to normalize it as much as I can and say, you know what? I wanted to tell you, some kids at camp, they wet the bed. They wake up and they wet the bed. And when that happens at camp, I'm just telling all the kids, whenever that happens at camp, I'm going to have Miss Wendy check all the beds after everybody leaves. We're going to wash those sheets. And when that kid gets back to their bed at night, it's going to be dry again. And we're not going to tell anybody what happened. It's just going to be something that we take care of, just so you know. You know, I'm not saying, Isabella, I know that you're a bedwetter. We're just normalizing it and letting them have that felt safety. Okay, and then physiological strategies within empowering principles is giving them what their bodies need. So that's feeding. We're eating every 2 hours. We're always saying yes to healthy food, right? You can't have Oreos whenever you want. That's not something that we would just have out and available. But if a child says that they're hungry, you're making food available. So that should be part of your structure of your program. Some good healthy foods, fresh fruit, packaged nuts, nut butters are usually good, beef jerky, fruit leathers with no sugar added, protein bars, applesauce. We're trying to go for higher in protein and higher in fiber as well, because those are things that are going to help them to stay feeling full. Any other ideas for healthy foods specifically that you would throw in? String cheese, that's a great one. Yeah, any kind of dairy. Toby? Yeah. Right. So there's some nut allergies, so be aware of what your kids have and don't offer those. Probably in general, if you've got a peanut allergy, you're not bringing peanut butter, but almond butter might be okay, right? Others? Carol, you are so precious. Let's try it again. Go ahead and raise your hand. Carol.
We have one of our snacks that we do a lot. We make a little apple, smear it with some peanut butter without a peanut allergy, and put marshmallows on it, and then we take pictures.
Oh, fun. I love it. A silly and fun one. So if you don't have a peanut butter allergy, you can do an apple slice, some peanut butter, and marshmallows. Yeah. And put it in your mouth. Smile. Cute. No, here, Sherry. Yeah. Go-Gurts, that's good. Higher protein, that dairy. The higher protein, higher fiber, lower sugar snacks, they are more expensive. It's worth it to work it into your budget. All right, providing fidgets. You got a fidget in your bag this morning, so we're trying to model that for you. Are you using it right now? Yes, right on, good. And then talking about feelings. So doing a feelings check. How is everybody feeling right now? And also just prompting a child. So, they had a negative reaction to something, and later, I wonder how you felt when this happened, or I wonder how you felt when, a kid yelled this out during chapel. A feeling circle where we talk about feelings, or even hugging a pillow. So having a hug pillow that you would pass around, and everybody just gets a nice hug from that pillow. Group connections, so connecting with your cabin group or other group, like doing a circle of hand hugs, where hand hug is like this weird thing that teenagers do. I don't really understand it, but I think you go, Serena, you look cool, it's like that, right? I think that's a hand hug. And so you would do that around the circle. Yells and chants, scientifically proven, when we sing together or when we have a chant together, something happens in our brain to connect us with one another. So if you had a group chant like cabin 6 out in the sticks, woo, like that could be something that connects you as a group and makes everybody feel good. There's a lot of activities for sensory input. I'm just going to run through these. Crash and bump, there's a lot of information about that in our TBRI manual. Tug of war, doing a crab walk relay. There's different types of feelings, of senses that we have. Deep muscle touch is called proprioceptive. Vestibular is when we're spinning around in space. And our kids tend to have more sensory issues than other kids because of what they've experienced. And so being able to provide some of these activities that either spin or feel like deep touch, cartwheels would be spinning them around. A water bucket relay is something heavy. If you've got a hitter, it might be that they need more deeper physical touch. So holding something heavy like water buckets, that would be something more proprioceptive. Doing push-ups, if you can make that fun. Putting kids on the swings. Have you heard about the magic mustache? there's actual like nerve receptors that help to calm us down. And one of them is right here. And if you put your finger, yep, I see you doing it, Alice. If you put your finger right here and just gently press. Now you're not going to do this to a kid, right? That would be kind of awkward. But just 10 seconds of this. So we say, let's do the magic mustache before we go into chapel right now. You can also put your hands over your eyes and your palm is just gently touching the outsides of your eyes. That's calming. Tightening and relaxing your muscles. So everybody, we're going to make fists and then we're going to release them, different parts of the body. Stretching, deep breathing, using one hand to squeeze the other, running warm water over your hands, or for some kids, it's calming to run really cold water over their hands. Putting a wet towel on your face, keeping the airways clear. Doing wall push-ups or chair push-ups. Whispering and murmuring can be a sensory input. Doing a human bridge. I do this one in Sunday school with one of my kids who just loves to run around and push other kids. And Serena, will you do it with me? So it is just, now this is not like a competition, but we're just going to push on each other. And let's see if we can keep pushing in a way that neither one of us falls down, but it gets harder and harder, right? And so you're going to have your kid who you have to do a redo with. Sorry, I'm still pushing harder and harder. But you can eventually get to a place where you're both pushing fairly hard. Look at that, healthy touch and that sensory input. Thank you. All right. And then going with data. So what has worked for this child in the past? Is there anything in the caregiver documentation? Can you talk with their staff from last year? And then ecological strategies are about the environment. We've talked about a lot of those already, but a couple that I would add would be transitions. So giving the 5-minute heads up, the 3-minute heads up, the 1-minute heads up, and having rituals. So every night, at my camp, every night, the camp director would come in and say goodnight to each child individually. And that just cued us that, okay, now is the time when we're staying in our beds. Okay, and then we're gonna move on to correcting principles. Correcting principles are guides for changing behaviors. And even when we get to correcting principles, the first set is all proactive strategies. So it's all the positive stuff. A lot of it is what you've already heard today. There was a lot built into it. But in the proactive strategies, we first look and say, are all of the needs getting met, right? Are their sensory needs, their emotional needs, are their needs getting met? Have they eaten enough? Have they got enough water today? A proactive strategy you can use if you've got the kid who needs that constant connection, giving them a choice. So saying, I'm going to sit by you during story time right now. Should we sit like one hand apart or should we sit an elbow apart? Okay, so they're getting the choice. Anytime I'm giving choices, both of those are perfectly acceptable for me, okay? And both of them are positive. It's not like you can sit by me or you can go to your room, child. It is, these are two great things. We can sit a hand apart or an elbow apart. You pick which one, okay? So you're sharing the power in that way. Pre-teaching. So today, Jeff, you and I are going to sit together during chapel. If you forget to sit by me, do you want me to come over and remind you, or should I think of like a secret word to say to you? Secret word. What should our word be? Please, Jeff, please. Okay, good, got it. So if you forget, and then we're going to review it, right? Our kids are going to need this several times. So Jeff, you and I are going to sit together during chapel, and you're going to come over and sit by me, or I'm going to come sit by you. If you're sitting somewhere and I can't sit by you, I'm going to remind you by using the special word, and the special word is please. I'll come over and say please, and then what are you going to do? You're going to come sit with me? Great, perfect. All right, high five, secret handshake. Great. All right, so responsive strategies. I'm moving us along because I do want to get a couple minutes for questions. I also want to let you out like 2 minutes early so you can get to lunch, right? Or get the bathroom before the other group does. Because I'm all about connecting with you and meeting your needs. So responsive strategies is when we respond to the behaviors that we don't want to see. And everyone is supposed to leave feeling connected, feeling like the behavior is corrected, and everybody's content. So we're happy with each other, we're happy with life, and we're happy about where the behavior has gone. Playful engagement is where you mostly want to stay, but sometimes you're going to get to a place where a child has a behavior that's challenging in a way that you need to demonstrate to them that you're the authority and you have You have them, right? You have the structure that they are going to need. And that is what we call the next step, which is structured engagement. You're adding firmness. And so the way I might do that, Meredith comes and she runs into the chapel and she kicks me. And I'm going to say, whoa, Meredith. Okay, what did my voice just do? What did you hear? It got low. Yeah, it got low. It got more alerting, right? Whoa, whoa. So it's whoa, buddy. Whoa, sweetheart. What was that? I put the brakes on her. Whoa, right? Like this is something that we need to pay attention to right now. This is the time when you're offering choices. Okay, so I might be offering a redo to Meredith for that run. I love that you came in so excited. I got kicked when you came in. I want to see you come in the right way. Would you please go back to the door and walk back in? Now, if that's going to feel demeaning in any way, I feel like maybe even the way I just said it was a little demeaning, then I'm going to say, let's do it together. Could we do it together? Maybe she doesn't want to. You know, this is like you're sensing what the child needs. But then you can be offering choices. And usually with TBRI, we're offering our choices like this, hand facing the person. And the two choices are both what? They're both things that are perfectly acceptable to me. That's right. I don't think I need to give you more examples of choices. I think we've done that. But please make sure that your choice is not the thing I want you to do and a punishment for not doing the thing I want you to do. The two choices are always positive. So practice that. Be ready to go with that. And then compromises. So if I tell Meredith, it's time to come in and we're going to sit at chapel. This is the time we come in and sit at chapel. I don't want to come in and sit at chapel, Miss Wendy. Okay, so this is now structured engagement, right? I might say, Meredith, if you are asking me for a compromise, I'm going to need you to use nice words. I'm going to need you to use good words with me. I'm going to need you to say please. And so what I just did is I'm showing her, you can ask for a compromise, right? Like I am all about helping to share power with you here, helping you to get your needs met. And I'm giving you a strategy to do that. If you're asking me for a compromise, I'm going to need you to use nice words. I'm going to need you to use good words. Now, she might not know what those are. And so then I might give her a couple choices. I might say, I can tell you those words and you can repeat them to me. Or if you already know them, you can say them. And Meredith's probably going to say, I want to please not go to chapel. And then we're going to have a conversation about it, right? And figure out why she doesn't want to go to chapel and what kind of a compromise we could have. What are some compromises for a kid that doesn't want to go to chapel? Assuming that the expectation is that this kid is sitting in chapel. What would be a compromise you could offer? Yes. Chapel is going to happen, but I want you to be the one to choose what we do right after chapel. In fact, here's the two choices I'm going to give you, right? Yes, Linda. Oh, yes, they could sit in the back. They could even sit on the side, right? Yeah, and this might have to do with grandma and grandpa, aunt and uncle. This might have to do with why they don't want to be in chapel. Maybe chapel's really loud, right? We can accommodate that. There could be a lot of different reasons that they don't want to sit in chapel. Or they might just really want to do that other thing we were just doing, so we can look forward to when we get to do that. Was there another one over here? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good. Okay. Perfect, that's great. So Cherie's camp does a small bin of fidgets for those kids who really can't sit still, or for those who can't handle the noise, that they would have special headphones for those kids. If it moves past structured engagement to calming engagement, that's a danger zone, but you can still handle it. So calming engagement would be you get a very firm tone. So let's say Isaac, jumps up on these rocks and he's on a rock that is really dangerous and I am worried for him. I'm going to have a very firm tone with him. I'm going to speak slowly because now my tendency is, Isaac, you get off that rock right now. I need you to get down right now. But his mind, whatever's going on with him, is racing so much that he actually needs me to slow down. So in those moments when it's escalated, you are going to stop, plant your feet, and consciously slow down. Isaac, you need to come down from that rock now. Okay, so it's slow, it's firm, it's very structured. This is where we can do a time in. We're never going to do a time out. We're never going to send a child away because of their behavior. I probably wouldn't even call it a time in because a lot of kids have, with any kind of timeout type of stuff, there's a lot of baggage with that. But it would be you're going to hang out with me or you're going to be my buddy right now. Every time, we're always going to return to playful engagement. Playful engagement is our baseline for all of our interaction with kids. And there is no kid that we wouldn't return to playful engagement with. So Isaac didn't earn calming engagement or structured engagement through his behavior for the rest of the week. He earned it for that moment. And then as soon as it's resolved, we're connected, we're corrected, and we're content, and we're able to just return to that playful engagement that says, you're precious and you're good, we're good, right? There is a final stage of engagement that is not for you in your daily interactions. And hopefully you have a team that handles the most difficult behaviors, and that is the team that anything beyond this should be sent to. So something where somebody's actually getting physically hurt, like truly hurt, when a child is not able to respond to any of these techniques, that should be going to a special team, to you as the director, to somebody who's specially trained in some of these techniques. Your average person is who I wanted to build this training for, and when it gets past that certain point, it's probably not productive to have somebody who hasn't been especially trained in a more significant way than what we're doing today. All right. I saved one piece for the end, and it's going back to the second portion of connecting principles, and that is mindfulness strategies. Something more important than anything I've talked to you about in this past hour and some is the work that we do personally in our own hearts to prepare for being with kids. We touched on it a little bit this morning in talking about trusting God, but it's really about our own history, the way we were parented, the way that we're used to caring for children, and going to that place of what really is behind my responses. That for me has been, more than any of these 81 tips and tricks, that for me has been the most valuable and fruitful part of my relationship with kids. For me to do the hard work of why is it that I'm so bothered when a child makes those same grating noises over again, over and over, in a way that other adults don't seem bothered. That goes back to my childhood and my dad's response when all 5 of us kids were at different noise sources at once. When we say, how was I parented? How does that impact my assumptions about caring for children? How does that impact my assumptions about child behavior and my expectations of myself to intervene in the lives of these kids? That is the best work that you're going to do. And what I would say just for each of us as you delve into that for yourself, they say that time is the great healer of all wounds, and that's not true. Time helps. It really helps to get time away. So I'm not going to minimize the role that time has. But time itself doesn't do all the work. And there may be things that happened in your own childhood. Like I said, I had a wonderful childhood, and yet there are things that I've needed to work through so that I can be the best parent to my kids, so that I can be the best, hopefully grandma at camp. That's my life goal, if you want to invite me to your camp. There's those things that have been more fruitful, and then they come out in all of these tips and tricks that I've told you today. So when we summarize TBRI, it is about see the need, meet the need, and never quit. And part of that includes for our own selves, right? Okay, it's 12:12. Let's do, and 12:15 is when we get to break for lunch and get you to the restroom. So what questions would you have? And we'll do 2 questions, and then I'll hang around for anybody who wants to hang around. Back here. Yes. Or did you look already and it's not there? Carrie, the TBRI manual, would that be under club and camp, mentoring and camp? Okay. Yep. And if you have any trouble so it should be under both the mentoring director and the camp director's page. If you have any trouble finding it, just contact us, let us know. Okay, one more question? Please, not about sarcasm. Austin. Oh, yes. Yes, so the goal of any behavioral correction is we leave and we're connected, right? Austin, you and I are still connected. The behavior is corrected and everybody is content. Content, corrected, and connected. All right, I'm gonna pray for you. Lord God, thank you so much for this time together. Thank you for the hearts that came into this room to discover the next steps in how they can care for kids. Lord God, would you see the hearts that are here? Would you see this genuine love for children that is exuding from the beautiful people in this room and online? And Lord, would you receive that as our worship of you today? God, we love you. We serve you, Lord God. And our love and connection for kids comes from the tender way that you love us, Lord God. And Father, the beautiful gift that you gave us in Jesus and the small gifts that you lavish upon us every day. Thank you that every time we look into your eyes, you see us as precious, and that's what you call us, no matter what kind of behaviors we present to you. And Lord, our investment in these kids and our commitment to them is to show them who you are, and that's one of the ways. So we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Everyone got something meaningful out of that. I think she had some really good examples. It was a lot of information, I know, but hopefully a lot of it seemed pretty familiar already to you. So there's a couple things just as reminders about how we handle things specifically at our camp too. We follow all this that she mentioned, but also we do have a couple reminders. So overall, you want to do everything you can to prevent a meltdown. Once again, a meltdown is just dysregulation. They're reaching a point where they can no longer control how they're responding to a situation. So what we're doing is following all of these skills that she mentioned to catch things down low before it continues to escalate. As we have learned more about TBRI and have implemented this more and more in our camp, meltdowns have significantly decreased. It's kind of amazing how much that has changed things for us. Compromise, like she mentioned, is great. Especially when you have two campers, use those skills that she mentioned about creating compromise. Let us know if you need backup. That's what we're here for. Support staff is there to help you with that. Sarah and Devin are here to help you with that. I can help you with that, whether it's confirming that it's a compromise you can make, whether it's helping come up with ideas, you're trying to suggest a plan to your campers and they're not buying what you're saying, and you're like, oh, let's bring Katie in. I bet she has some good ideas. Fill me in, I will go along and I will support what you've suggested, or I might have some other good ideas too, but bring us in to support you, to back you up on all of that. The very last approach that we want to take is trying to take minutes away from activity, but sometimes it does reach that point where nothing else is working that we're trying to do, and we're still trying to keep it here before it continues to build. So often, if it's getting to that point, one of the things that is most effective usually is taking a couple minutes away from swim time, and all that means is one of us comes and does time in with them, so they're going to hang out with me or Sarah or Devin or whoever, might be another support staff. They're just going to hang out with us on the side of the pool for like 2 minutes while everyone else gets to go in, and then again, it's not a scary, mean thing that we're doing while we're hanging out with them. We're usually chatting with them. We're trying to keep it still a lot of connection-based, and then we connect with them again before they get in the pool. I want to re-emphasize what she said, that everything needs to end in connecting playfulness. That is super, super, super important. That is how our campers, and think about yourself too, You know that you're okay with someone, that you're not still scared of what's happening or how they're feeling when you're able to connect in a lighthearted, playful way. They know that the issue's been solved and you're moving on, and that's it. You're not going to hold it against them in the future. It's not going to become an issue for them, but you're connecting again with them. So again, too, sometimes they need a little space, and again, we're not going to make it like you've done something bad and so we're sending you away. They just might need to take a little bit of space from the others in their cabin. My 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, has really gotten the concept of I need space and tells me that all the time with her little sister. I need space, Mommy. And so she wants to go do something else. So when they need space, again, we're not making it a punitive thing, but you know what? You guys might do better if you have just a little bit of space from each other. And so time in, space means that they're hanging out with one of us instead, or they're hanging out at activity centers with someone else, one of the activity center's people or another support staff while you go do something else, or you stay there and your other camper goes with the support staff. So we're giving them that time apart needed if it's a conflict between two kids. If it's a conflict between you and a camper, you two might need a little space, and that does happen. I need space for my own kids often. So that's kind of how we handle things. And then lastly, our main topic is runners. So again, this is one of the scarier things that we have to deal with at camp sometimes. But keeping these other principles in mind has significantly decreased this. It's been a couple years since we've had a runner because we're so careful about keeping things lower level. So if it does happen, kids are in their fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. They're activating the flight mode. Something has triggered them, and they have reached their limit, and they just need to get out of there. One big one that can cause this is noise, and it often happens at night or late afternoon when someone is running, and it's because they've used up all of their tolerance in their body, and so they're depleted, and they just can't hang anymore. And so, again, night counselors, I mentioned to you yesterday during your meeting, your job is so important. It is so important that you are implementing these skills to help de-escalate them from the day, help them wind down. You're not amping them up. You can find fun things to do with them, so you're still connecting with them, but in a way that's still calming and comforting and helping them bring their day to a close. If we're keeping things calmer and quieter in the cabin as much as possible, it's still going to be chaos in your cabin at night no matter what, but do what you can to be bringing it down. This doesn't happen as much. So if someone does run, we need to keep that kid safe. That is our first priority. We've had them run up into the woods, and we've had them run down the driveway. If that happens, you or someone right around you, if you are not physically able to run after them, needs to immediately follow them, because we need to keep eyes on them at all times so that we do not lose them and we do not, safety, keep an eye on them. If you are not able to call on a radio, have someone else around you immediately. If you see this happening, call on the radio, runner, near, cabin, whatever. And then people will know that they need to run also and get over there. I've seen Sarah running in flip-flops to go help a situation like that. And so as much as possible, stay too deep. So if you see one person running, go with them if you're able to. Support staff, this is where it comes in handy with you also. If you are not physically able to run, then you step in for other counselors so the young folk can go do it. I'm not running after a kid either. I would die halfway. But those that can need to be the ones that do this. Sometimes it takes a second to get caught up and get everyone kind of coordinated, but as much as possible, we need people to act quickly in this situation. You want to give them space. Again, we need to make this not scary and not threatening, because that's going to continue to build their flight response. So the more we can do while keeping an eye on them, give them some space, talk to them, try and turn it into a different situation So one good example is several years ago we had someone run, and one of our amazing night counselors just went with him and was like, hey, is your body really busy? Let's do some laps around the basketball course. And just kind of like talked to him and ran with him and kept him calmer that way. And the kid ran off the energy he needed to. His body was able to come down. But that night counselor didn't make it a I'm chasing you feeling. It was an I'm running with you because clearly you need to run a little bit right now. And make it into, again, more of that playful connection when you can. There are times, like when the camper ran into the woods, where it was just, we got to get him and bring him back to safety. It was dark out. We had to make sure he couldn't get further into the woods than he already was. And we just had to, the two counselors that went after him had to just restrain him and bring him back down. In that case, we bring them to the nurse's office. We help contain them for a while until they are not danger to themselves or others, help them come down, and then we have to take them home because they are no longer safe for themselves or others in that situation, which is why we're trying to not get to this point. Any questions about these things? Everyone feels comfortable with what happens? Yeah, Paul. What we do if it's a counselor running away or staff. Please be regulating your own bodies and taking breaks you need to. I know that was a joke, but it is important though, as you volunteering, this is a taxing week. It is hard physically, it is hard mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So make sure you're taking care of yourself during the week. Make sure you're getting sleep, that you're eating, that you're drinking enough water, that you're taking the breaks that we provide. If you are really struggling with your camper and you do need a little bit of space, please communicate that with someone. So someone can take your camper, the camper doesn't feel pushed away, and you are able to step away and take a breather until you're ready to return back. Again, we want to keep you down here instead of up here so you're not running into the woods screaming. I will have failed as a director if that happens. So we're going to avoid that. Okay, any other questions? Okay. And I just want to confirm, again, this sounds really scary. This freaked me out when I was a counselor, the potential of this happening, and it is stressful and scary when it happens because you're concerned about that camper and about what's happening. But the more we follow everything else we've taught you guys, the less this happens. It really, really, really works. If you're feeling like things are starting to build beyond what you can handle comfortably, that's what Sarah and Devin are for. Bring them into the picture earlier rather than later. They have the skills to help bring things back down so that we don't get anywhere near this situation. Any other questions? Okay, we are going to do our Headed to Royal Family Kids Camp song, and then we'll do a break after that. So our lovely music lady, Leela, she's also on our leadership team, is not here. She's at a wedding this weekend, but she awesomely recorded this video to lead you all in the song so that I don't have to do it for you, because that would not be great. So everyone needs to stand up. She's going to walk you through lyrics as a reminder and all the movements, and we will just follow her lead.
All right, here's the theme song. So you start out, you're heading to the Royal Family Kids Camp, and then heading for a lot of fun with the jazz hands. Then thumbs up. It's great just knowing I'm part of God's family. Playing under the sun, right? Big sun, great. Swimming and splashing and having a good time. Grandma, Grandpa, PMA, and devotions. So one hand top, sprinkle down. It's a great time, we're back to the swimming, for the good news, like a Bible, that God loves me. Awesome. All right, let's give it a try. All right, let's walk it out. Headed for the Royal Family Kids Camp, headed for a lot of fun. walk it out. Headed for the Royal Family Kids Camp, headed for a lot of fun. It's great just knowing I'm part of God's family, playing under the sun. Swimming and splashing and having a good time. Grandpa PMA devotions, it's a great time for the good news that God loves me. Back to walking. This one's gonna be a little longer walk. Last time through here. Headed for the Royal Family Kids Camp, headed for a lot of fun. It's great just knowing I'm part of God's family, playing under the sun. Swimming and splashing and having a good time. Grandpa PMA devotions, it's a great time for the good news that God loves me. Woo! Great job, everyone. All right, here's the theme song. So you start out, you're heading to the
Training videos from now on. Oh yeah, so PMA is positive mental attitude. I know, I don't know why they don't explain that anywhere, and they just throw it in that song. It took me several years to learn what that stood for. Yeah, positive mental attitude, so there you go. Okay, so we are gonna do a break in a second. One question that did come up during the TBRI video is the TBRI manual. I did add it into your volunteer folder while the video was going, so you have access to that now. And then we don't have a slide for a break because I'm just adding it in. But you guys can go ahead and take a 10-minute break, so 3:40. Please be back in your seats by 3:40 and go cool down a little bit, drink some water, have another snack, and we will see you in 10 minutes. All right, folks, we're going to get started again. Okay, so our next and last topic for today is one that is really necessary for us to cover, but is also really hard for us to have to think about. If you've been with us before, you know we cover this every year. But we need to talk about human trafficking because our kids are some of the highest statistically vulnerable to this. And so it's really important for us to talk about, for you guys to know information about it. First, we're going to watch a video, and then I'm going to introduce someone else to talk about it. It's not me this time. So after the video, we'll introduce and we'll move on. So you've seen this video before, but I think it really continues to be good every year and really hits at what happens and why it's important that we do what we do.
From the day I was born, I had a mom and dad who loved me, told me I was capable, could be anything I want to be, came to all my games, showed they were in support of me, and every time I fell, they'd put a bandage on my knee, kiss me on the forehead and tell me, all better now, see? My dad has always been our family support beam. Working 9 to 5, still found time to coach my basketball team. Taught me how to dribble, how to shoot, and how to dream. Always told me I could be or do anything. Never put his hands on us and never had to scream. My father simply loved me. I never had to do a thing. My mother, she's the most beautiful I've ever seen. Tucked me in every night, always whispered sweet dreams. Packed all my lunches, even as a teen. She quit her job, gave up everything, and made raising my brother and I her daily routine. I'm ever grateful to God for the parents He's given to me. If not for my parents, I don't know where I would be. But not every child grew up the way I did. Some grew up too fast, never had the chance to be a kid. Susie grew up when she grabbed her little brother and hid before explaining to police why there were bruises on her eyelids. In high school, she was always suspended. So much pain in her chest, she just wanted to end it. She gave her heart to a man who said he could mend it, but a teen pregnancy was not what she had intended. At only 16, she wasn't ready to be a mother. Had no family to help besides her younger brother. Maybe her child could have a better life, she wondered, so she decided her baby would be adopted by another. When she turned 18, she aged out of foster care. She had nowhere to sleep, but she couldn't stay there. Met a man on the street, said he loved her eyes and hair. Told her he would help her, and she believed he truly cared. They moved to a big city for what this man called a new venture. Said she was now an escort for his high-paying members. And when she resisted, her defiance met his bad temper. His fist beckoned obedience, and she surrendered. What could I have done to prevent it? Could I have changed how the story had ended? With no mother or father, she was left undefended. But where would she be if she had been befriended? Well, I believe now is the time for us to make a difference. I recite not a poem, but the Orphan's Declaration of Independence, a song of freedom for the slave, an anthem of deliverance for every child who's ever known the heavy hand of negligence. Will you help me build a home for the fatherless? Will you help me give the forgotten justice? Will you rise against the traffickers, the agents of darkness, and defend the abandoned from the heartless? Together we can show her she is treasured, that she is beautiful and valuable beyond measure. Together we can be her shield and defender, a place of safety so she will never have to surrender.
Every single time I watch it, just kind of gets me. So it's really important what we do, and really important that we are able to train you guys on this. so that you can help be eyes. Again, part of our role is being safe people in the community for our kids. And so that's part of why we talk about this. I'm going to bring up Devin. You've heard me mention him a few times. Hopefully you've all met him so far. But he is going to lead this section talking about human trafficking. And he is going to share a little bit about his expertise and why he knows about this and is qualified to teach you all this information. So let's give Devin some applause because he's a little bit nervous.
All right, so this is actually my first time speaking into a microphone. I don't do public speaking, but I do have some experience doing, group projects and stuff, of course, for school. So I'm currently a second year, going into my third and final year college student. I'm a Master of Social Work student, and so I was honored when Katie asked me to present on this topic because this is actually near and dear to my heart, and I've worked with some of these kids and in foster care. So this is really near and dear to me, and so I feel honored to be able to share a little bit. So let's see. So show of hands, how many people have heard about the term CSEC? Some of us? Okay. So CSEC is an acronym for Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children. So human trafficking, of course, is the umbrella term. And typically, when we think of human trafficking, we think 18 and up. So my specialty and the work that I've done and my experience I have worked with human trafficking adult survivors. My passion is with those that are minors. And of course, those that include the kids that we're going to be working with over camp. So what are some things that maybe come to mind when we think of sexual exploitation of children? Or we can, if it's our first time hearing this term, we can think, what comes to our mind when we think of human trafficking of minors? Oh, and this is a question. I'm trying to make it interactive too. So you could either raise your hand and there's no wrong answers. This is just kind of yes. Kidnapping, yeah. Poverty? Pornography, yeah, yeah. Disgust, yeah. So kind of what's kind of the mental picture when we hear kidnapping? What's kind of what mental picture do we, for like the perpetrator? Forceful? Somebody the child doesn't know, right? And maybe what are some characteristics that maybe would describe this person? The mental picture that we have when we hear kidnapping. What's that? White van? Yeah, because this is what we've seen in movies and TV shows. White van. Maybe somebody who's persuasive. What about maybe their age? What are we thinking? What's the mental picture? Yes. What's the mental picture of the perpetrator? Or yeah, the trafficker or the kidnapper. 20? Okay. 40? Because of the kind of the stereotypical of what we maybe can think of as far as, the white van, kidnapping, is it maybe older, creepy, white man, right? Not, even though some of us may know that that's not always the case, but that's kind of the social perception. That's kind of the mental picture. So thank you guys. So next slide, please. So some of the misconceptions and misrepresentations of what trafficking of minors looks like, CSEC. So yes, so traffickers maybe are older, creepy men, or this doesn't happen in this area, this doesn't happen in the United States. It only happens in foreign countries, it only happens, how many of us saw that movie, was it Sound of Freedom? Excellent movie. It was excellent, and it doesn't always capture the picture of what CSEC looks like even in our county, in this area. But I thought it did a great job continuing the conversation. And because it does happen, but it's not as explicit when it comes to kidnapping. So yeah, so kidnapping, child prostitution, this only happens in the bigger cities, LA, San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco. Or it only happens during the Super Bowl, or when there's, maybe car week, or, these big events. Next slide, please. So the reality is of what it looks like, even in our area, is just this one time. Well, he loves me. At least I'm being taken care of. They're often showered with gifts, money, drugs. So it's not always the explicit. In fact, actually, it's very rare when it's the white van, the kidnapping. It's that slow grooming that we were talking about some today and yesterday. That's how it starts. And most often it is somebody they know, or somebody that gets to know them slowly. They're often not much older than the individual. Some of the girls that I've worked with, their trafficker was maybe 20, 21, 22, and that's their boyfriend. So they don't even view their trafficker as a trafficker, the way that we think of, and that does happen, like with the movie Sound of Freedom. So it's not always that explicit. Well, at least now I'm getting paid for it. So 90% of our kids that are experiencing CSEC have experienced childhood sexual abuse. So this is a way for them to take back some of that power, because, well, I'm getting paid for it now. I wasn't getting paid when uncle was touching me or when aunt was touching me. So I at least might as well get paid for it. And it's rarely forced at first. So I definitely liked what the gentleman was mentioning in the video, because there are times, the stereotypical pimp or the trafficker, that traffics with or exploits with kind of a heavy hand or with fear. That is part of it. But it doesn't always start out that way. It usually starts out with, maybe getting the girls' makeup done, getting their hair done, getting them nice clothes. And of course, as we all know, our kids in foster care, that's like, a Chanel purse, a Louis Vuitton purse, a gold necklace, or what they think is gold. It's fake. I've even told girls, like, sweetie, that's it's not real. That's not real gift. That's not a real gift. That's not real, But because they're so hurting, and kind of what was spoken earlier of, trying to fill some things that, that they, so they're so yearning for that safety and comfort and care that this is sometimes, why they're, why they're looking for that. And so that's why our kids in foster care are way higher risk of being CSEC involved. Next slide, please. So what is CSEC? So fun fact, so CSEC, so commercially sexually exploitation of children, there is no definitive definition given by the law. So this is actually from the National, maybe you can help me, Sarah, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So it is a commercial sex act caused by force, fraud, or coercion, the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services for the purpose of subjection and to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. So I know those are kind of a lot of technical words, but what I'm talking about is going to be the sexual exploitation. Next slide, please. So the FBI does estimate that there's about 200,000 minors, children, who are being trafficked per year in the United States. And there are 13 major hotspots across the U.S., 4 of which are in California. So we probably can guess Sacramento, San Francisco, LA, and San Diego. So those are the hot spots. And so that does go with a stereotype of the big city, so to speak, because of, but as we'll get to later, we'll find out that even in our area, we're considered to be a high rate. So the numbers aren't as high, of course, as LA, San Francisco, just because our population is not as big. But as far as per capita, or, it's considered a high percentage. So even in our own backyard. So there's approximately 10,000 youth per year in out-of-home care, so our kids in foster care, group homes, or they call them STRGPs now, who are on the run at any point in time. So 10,000 kiddos. So as we'll get, oh yes. This is nationwide. So this is at any point in time. There's 10,000 across the nation, yes. Oh, sorry, out-of-home care, yeah. And what do you call it? For transparency, so this was actually a project or a presentation that I did for one of my finals. So I'm kind of recycling because a lot of it's, you know, good information, but that's why there might be some acronyms in there that my fellow students would understand, but so I apologize for that. But Katie gave me a good suggestion that if you guys see any, what's the word? Sorry, like grammatical errors or spelling errors, if you point them out, you get a prize. So that's how I know you guys are paying attention. Because I went through them last night, as I do, and I was like, oh, I spelled that wrong. Oops, I spelled that wrong, or oops, I forgot to put something. So if you see those, and it was too late for me to change them. So if you see them, you get a prize. So call it out. So as I mentioned earlier, 90% have experienced childhood sexual abuse. And as we know with exploitation, with human trafficking, that it's continuing, of course, that childhood sexual abuse and making it more complex and making it more that, you know, there's the exploitive factor involved. So 60% will contract an STI and become pregnant. I was not able to find statistics as far as like how many will only get an STI or how many will only get pregnant. 60% will get an STI and become pregnant. So if we, you know, think about that impact. And so 87% of sexually exploited youth have run away from out-of-home care at least once. So almost 90%. So kind of that, what Katie was talking about earlier as far as that flight, or what the video was talking about as far, you know, the fight, flight, or freeze. So for some of these girls, you know, they're in that flight. They're in that, you know, hypervigilance and, you know, trying to get away from whatever it is that they're experiencing. And so they'll run into the arms of their trafficker. Okay, next slide, please. So, okay, kind of hard to read, but most at risk are, of course, going to be our Black and Latino communities. And as we know, we live in a very diverse, you know, area, and unfortunately, marginalized communities are overrepresented in our child welfare system, and of course that means our foster care system. And of course this has to do with you know, the adultification of children of color, you know, not treating them the same as their, you know, white peers. And so that has to do with why this this population is more at risk for experiencing childhood sexual abuse and grooming. Yeah, so underserved populations, I'm glad that my statistic matched the video. So 60% of CSEC survivors, victims, have been in the foster care system. And so let's see. Oh yeah, and so most of them have a family member who was either involved in the sex trade, whether the you know, parent was trafficked, mom was a prostitute, you know, maybe uncle was a pimp or a trafficker. So it was sexuality for these girls, for these kids, was perverted from a young age. So this is also, for them, this is common. This is part of what their normal is. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a very complex issue, and so I won't get into the weeds of everything, you know, as far as policies and different things, but because I was thinking, okay, how am I going to make this relevant to the work that we do? But of course, this also goes with why I think it's, you know, a good idea that we don't have our phones, because there is a lot of technology. Even in my lifetime, there's been such a change with the amount of access to technology, the number of devices in the home, and that increases the risk for kids to be groomed online, for kids to post pictures of themselves, that we've seen cases of that. And so, yeah, so just to give you an idea of, I guess, the volume is, so there was one county in Florida that received over 99,000 IP addresses. Only 1% of those IP addresses were being investigated. So we have a lot of good reporting, and people know how to report and where to report, but on the back end, there's not enough support for, okay, what do we do with all of this information? So just to give you an idea of the volume of this. So next slide, please. So the 4 Ps that, because it's such a complex issue, are prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. So a lot of the work that we are going to be doing at camp is going to be prevention, and of course intervention, if any kiddo, discloses anything to any of us. But a lot of it's going to be prevention. And so, next slide, please. Okay, sorry, I guess it didn't make the cut, but I had a slide up there with a big 15. There was a big 15 and a big number 8. So, what do we think the 15 stands for? Average age, yeah. So the most common is between 14 and 17 for our girls, but 15 is the average age. And then I had a big 8 up there. What do we think the 8 stands for? 8 years of trafficking, okay. What else? Any other guesses? Okay, that's a good. So maybe that was how many attempts of contact to try to, what was it, I'm sorry? To build a relationship with the kiddo. Yeah. What else? Any other guesses? So 8 is the average age when childhood sexual abuse actually begins. So that's right in the middle of our age group that we're going to be working with, 7 to 11. So 8 is the average age. And so if we're thinking 8 is average age of when sexual abuse starts, and 15 is the average for when these girls actually become exploited, we actually have a pretty good window as far as prevention, intervention, reporting, those kind of things. Yes? My research, or what I found, is 11 for boys. For boys, yeah. And admittedly, most of my research, because of what's available, has been for girls, because the vast majority are girls. There is exploitation of boys, but much fewer and far between, so there's not as much data. Yeah. But I wasn't able to find anything for Santa Cruz County, but for Monterey County, there's 308 identified victims of, this was last year, of CSEC. So I would guess that it's probably more in Santa Cruz, just because, so my previous job, I worked with a lot of Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, and San Benito County, and quite a few of our girls actually came from Santa Cruz County. Yes? What are they called? What are they called? Aruka? Oh, yes, I have heard of them, yeah. And Monarch Services? Yeah. Is a high, yeah. So Monterey County is also considered high rate, yeah, yeah. So even though we're not these big cities, of course, that have hundreds of thousands of people, we are still our area is still considered to be a high rate. Yeah. I thought I saw a question. So, any question? Yes. Sorry. Right. That's exactly right. Right. I mean, because I think most of us have probably heard, 1 in 6 as far as like how many, kids have experienced sexual abuse. It's likely much higher. And of course, going back to when we're talking about boys, and of course young men, it's probably going to be even fewer and fewer reported, of course, because of stigma and those kind of things. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything or any other, yes? Mm-hmm. So what I look for is, well, of course, a lot of our kids are going to be hypersexual, maybe because of their past. But if you're working with a kiddo and they're using language that's like, okay, where that's not age appropriate, or if they're talking about maybe gifts or money, or like if they have a grasp on what that is. But you said what do we do? We all took like a mandated reporting, of course, right? Training. Yeah, so we would, of course, report it. And then I would assume we would speak to Katie, to make sure as far as what Royal Family Kids' policy is with regards to reporting. But absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely be aware of any kind of inappropriate talk, inappropriate touch. Of course, we spoke a lot of. Just even if you think that, if you have suspicion, it's better to, and we don't have to dig and, ask a bunch of questions, but it's good to, for them to feel safe and for us to ask questions and, because they may not even see themselves as victims. Most often they don't. The teenagers I've worked with don't even see themselves as victims because they're like, I'm making money. What do you, I'm getting, my phone's taken care of, my nails are taken care of, and this might be an uncomfortable part, but physiologically, right? It takes care of some needs, right? Human biology. And that's what makes it even more difficult because it's not always the explicit rape or the explicit harmful abuse that hurts. There is that, physiological response to childhood sexual abuse. So that's why teaching appropriate touch and even informing what inappropriate touch looks like, because some of our kids may not even know. Did you have a question? No. I thought I saw a hand. Yes. Right. Right. Mhm. Yes, and unfortunately that's like the $1 million question. So because unfortunately in this area, we don't have, and I'm talking about I'm only familiar with Santa Cruz, San Benito, and Monterey County, because I know we have some San Jose volunteers as well. But I do know that there are quite a bit of resources up in Santa Clara. So we have therapists, we have counselors, we have social workers, we have law enforcement, we even have a human trafficking task group. We have no specialized housing. So what do we do? Even when we identify these kiddos, or even if they're wanting help, which is unfortunately very rare, where do we put them? Where do we place them? Right? So research shows that they need at least 2 years of specialized, a specialized residential facility for them to even begin something like therapy, like to continue therapy, because depending on how long they've been in the life, they will need to, deinstitutionalize, and withdraw. That's why I mentioned it's a very complex issue, because we're dealing with there's typically substance use. There's typically other risky behaviors that go on. Of course, there's the physiological aspect of it, the sex, the exploitation. There's their own history of, not getting things met, kind of like what was mentioned in the training. If they feel like that they were abandoned or they're not cared for, and this person's showing them all of this attention, who of us don't like attention? Who of us don't, So these are called like push and pull factors. So sometimes there is fear. So just a little about my experience. So now I work in the schools, but my previous job I worked at, it's called Cherished Receiving Center, and it's in Monterey County. And a receiving center is where social workers will bring kiddos. So we would get babies, from 2 days old, all the way to 17, about to age out of the system. And thank God in California, I believe it's 21 is the aging out. So we're definitely ahead on that. But if a teenager is not wanting help, or if they're not, actively involved, because there's stipulations that come with aging out at 21. You have to either be employed or, do some kind of a vocation or go to school. But if these teenagers aren't wanting help, then they age out at 18, and then it's no longer Department of Social Services. It's no longer their problem, so to speak. So I've actually had social workers tell me, well, she's almost 18 and she hasn't wanted help, so kind of it's almost like it's going to be somebody else's problem. And, and I would just say, well, if we only have 3 more months left, then that's, So, sorry, I'm jumping around. So where I worked, it was an emergency shelter, 24 hours, and social workers or police would bring in kids from 0 to 17, going on 18, either first-time removal from their homes due to, obviously, abuse, neglect. Most of the time we would have teenagers that would blow out a placement or be kicked out of, their foster home for one reason or another. We had one girl that was with us for 9 months. And mind you, this was only supposed to be, when the receiving centers were originally made or developed, it was supposed to be a 24-hour turnaround, 23 hours technically. But because a lot of the group homes were closed down and transitioned to STRTPs, it left a big gap, a big vacuum for where do we send, our at-risk, kids, or where do we send these hard-to-place teenagers? And so they would come to us. And I know for all of y'all listening in San Jose, there's a few receiving centers up there as well. And so we would get kids, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd get a call, hey, we found so-and-so, who's been missing for a month, and they would bring them in, and they'd be gone, within an hour. They'd come in, they'd clean up, they'd do their makeup, maybe take a shower, eat something, get a change of clothes, and then they were off. And so what do you do when you only have that 1 hour and they're coming in high as a kite, typically meth or other, pretty heavy duty drugs, and they're like, I can't be here because the more time I spend here, the harder my beating's going to be once once my trafficker gets to me, because I'm not making money. What do you say to that when you won't, this is your first time meeting this young lady, 14, 15, 16. So this is the reality of, so like I said, I worked with a lot of kids from Santa Cruz County. So this is, this isn't like a foreign thing or something that happens, this happens very much here. Yes. Yeah, so Monterey County, so that receiving center serves Monterey County, Santa Cruz, and San Benito. Yeah, the next one up is, I believe, in Santa Clara. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like so that's why the bulk of my research and the bulk of the work that I do have been for these girls and for, this population, because I feel that they're some of the most forgotten about. Because it's, what do you do? Because, and of course, I won't get into all the policies and things, but there's nothing by law that we're able to keep them. They could just walk right out. They would call up their trafficker, their boyfriend, and they'd come pick them up in the parking lot, and that's it. So, yeah. So, I know I was kind of rambling and going off, but yeah. Okay.
You did a great job. Yes. No, that was wonderful. Yeah, thank you. And I know someone mentioned our RUCA project, and here locally, they are a really great resource. They work specifically with trafficking victims, and they actually have become a foster family agency so that they can house kids under 18 in homes that are trafficking victims. And I know they've had a lot of issues with, like you talked about, housing for victims, because you have to be sober to live in a lot of these places, and most of them are not sober. And so finding then intake places that will take them has been a real struggle. They have to go out of the state for this. And so it's a big need. It's a big issue. And so if you're interested in volunteering with another cause like this, Aruka Project is a great place to look into. I can get you connected with them if you want. I know them well. And they're doing really good work and have been growing like us because of the need that's out there. All right, thank you, Devin. Okay, so we are on the very last bit here. I just had a couple notes. Sorry, I'm just pulling up in case San Jose had any questions. I'm ready for them. So just a couple quick things that I thought of that I didn't mention yesterday, and then is it time for open questions before we wrap up in about 15 minutes here, so we're just about done. If your name tag is wrong or you want it to be something else, if you've decided you have an alter ego that you want to be during camp, talk to Jackie. Jackie made our amazing name tags. So if you need something changed, please let her know, and she can fix that for you. These ones are really cute, so good job. And then today when we are leaving, make sure you leave your name tag again. Once again, tuck your little strings inside. Make sure you leave your name tags, I think, in the bin on that table out there where you picked them up. Don't take them with you, because even though you're positive you'll remember, you probably won't. And then you'll get a really boring name tag at camp because we won't have fancy ones for you. That's what I'm threatening, Jackie. There has to be some consequence. Time in with you. And then, if you are wanting to ride the bus to and from camp or help with registration, please email me like today and let me know. Figure out, talk to people you know, figure out carpooling so that you can get to and from as needed if you're going to ride the bus. There's lots of people here. Someone can give you a ride. So bus is really, really important that we have enough people on there. If you're wanting help at registration, we need lots of people there. So again, send me an email. Don't tell me. I will forget if you just tell me. And then lastly, because we have so many kids this year, one of the pain points we're visualizing at camp is mealtime. Because it's already loud in there. There's always already takes a lot of time to get all the kids through the line to eat. So this time, we're gonna assign tables to all the cabins, so there's no time spent trying to figure out what table you're gonna be at. Your cabin number will be on a sign on your table. That is what table you will have the whole week. And then at meal times, instead of waiting for every table to be silent and sitting still and ready to go, that's going to take forever with this group. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to rotate through the cabin numbers and let them, each one will get a turn going first at meals, and so we'll just rotate through that way. However, everyone needs to be at the table. So if there's kids running around, your table can't go yet. So make sure your kids are at your table, but they don't need to be silent before I dismiss them, because then no one will eat meals. We are going to still have a quiet cabin award and a clean cabin award. I am working out what those will be that are incentive enough, because usually that has been going first at meals. If you have a brilliant idea, feel free to let me know. But we do want them to be an incentive still for kids to be cleaning up their cabin and being quiet at night, being quiet by lights out. And then someone patrols the cabins and checks and makes sure everything is quiet. And whoever's quiet the earliest gets the quiet cabin award. Cabins are checked when everyone's in the amphitheater, the same time that someone's doing laundry checks. They also check for clean cabins. Cleanest cabin gets an award. So we want to hype it up. We want to make it something because that helps you all that they're excited about that. So if you have good ideas for that, let me know. And I had another thought as I was talking. It's gone. Okay. Any questions about anything out there? Everyone's just hot and tired? Yeah. Yes, make sure you have a watch and alarm if you don't have your phone. Oh, something I meant to say earlier. This is not what I was trying to think of earlier, but yes, watch and alarm if you don't have your phone. Smartwatch is not allowed. I will have mine, but otherwise, if you rely on an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or anything like that, that can get text messages or tracks location. Please don't bring it. Buy a regular watch from Amazon. I meant to mention when we talked about needing help, if you're in a situation talking with a camper and you need support, you need someone to come over and you're not able to step away, we have a signal for that, and it is this: a big wave, arm extended fully all the way around, and you're going to make it no big deal. You're going to be talking to your camper, and then you're going to see Sarah and go, "Hi, Sarah," and then she will go, "Oh, hey," and then come on over and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And so that's another way to get help if you're not able to radio, if you're not able to step away and ask someone. That's another signal that we use at camp. Yeah, my other thought's completely gone. Any other questions? Yes?
Do your best to reserve a big wave for only when you need help. End up doing it for fun and then people will want your location.
Yes, only do the big wave when you actually need help. Hopefully, no one just normally waves like this anyway. But if you do, no judgment. If that's your normal wave situation, try and keep it more low key during the week of camp. Yeah. Anything else? Any other ideas or comments that you want to throw out that may not have been covered or you feel like needs to be re-emphasized? No? Okay, I'm not getting anything from... Yes, so for birthday dinner we do cupcakes, and there is a very specific routine for how that happens to minimize chaos as much as possible. So when we instruct you on what the process will be, we'll talk about it with counselors and everything. Make sure you are listening, please, and following the directions. When people aren't following directions, it just makes it so much worse. Usually I think now we bring them to the tables, right? Yeah, we'll bring them to the tables, and they're usually, do we have chocolate and vanilla? Yeah, so they get to choose, wait until everyone has some before we light a candle. We sing, and then everyone blows it out, and then candles and matches are immediately returned. If you are in charge of matches, you have matches in your hand, no matter what, you never put them down. Do not give a kid matches. Any kid matches. Just period, don't give a kid matches. Okay, anything else? Nope? Okay. I'm not getting anything from San Jose either, so I think we're good to go. If anyone does think of other questions after this, just send me an email or a text, and I'm happy to answer. And we'll seal you later. Oh, wait, yeah? Oh, yes, thank you. That might be my other note that I had on here that I didn't read. Some ladies would like to pray over camp and for the group, so we'll be kind of wrapping up and cleaning up in here, but they will be meeting out in the parking lot. Does that work? Out front. If you would like to join them and pray for camp, that would be amazing. Praying for our kids and our staff and campground and everything. So I think that's it. Yes? I'll say one real quick prayer since they're going to do the heavy lifting of it in a few minutes. And then you guys are free to go. If you need a t-shirt switched out or anything, just let me know. We have more. We have the remainders in the office and we can get those for you. All right, God, thank you so much for this group of amazing people. And I just pray that you continue to grow all of us as we prepare for camp, that we do whatever introspection we need to do to be prepared to work with kids that need so much from us. I pray that we are all in a position and mindset to give all we have and to give what you have. And I pray for health for everyone and safety leading up to camp, and that things just work out the way you want them to, and that we can trust that they will, and trust that you have a plan for everything. In your name, amen. Be free.